Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast this week. This week is the week of September 20th, 2025, and we will be talking about Donald Trump, who's in the news again, and Charlie Kirk and his assassination, and what's been happening with the politics in this country. So, firstly, I'd like to start off by talking about Charlie Kirk, who was responsible for heading a right-leaning organization called Turning Point USA, which helped President Trump get elected during his second term. And this young man, who was a very outspoken young man, who was assassinated unfairly, savagely, publicly, by Tyler Robinson, who is the suspect who has been turned in. His mother and father had found a picture of a person who was wanted, and they identified them as their son, gave him a call, realized that he had escaped. Didn't want to go to jail initially, but I guess his parents convinced him to turn himself in. So he has turned himself in. And this had happened at Utah Valley University. So in the state of Utah, the death penalty is endorsed, and many people are seeking the death penalty for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And so we expect Tyler Robinson to be killed. Now, before we get into any details, another groundbreaking revelation relating to this was Jimmy Kimmel's comments, which led to him getting canceled while speaking on Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk, and just commenting basically that President Trump had not treated, when interviewed and asked about Charlie Kirk's assassination, had not treated it as serious as he could have, because Trump had mentioned the creation of a ballroom, which in truth is something that they desperately need, according to him. And I agree with, considering that they would host galas in a tent on the White House lawn, and if ever it rained, it would completely wash out the event. And so that's sore news, definitely, for the president, and that's definitely something that should weigh on his mind, and it's definitely good news for us to have a ballroom in the White House. But I guess, it's fair on behalf of Jimmy Kimmel to say that maybe he's just tired because he's been on so many talk shows talking about the same incident, because this is the only thing that's been on news this whole week. So maybe he's gotten tired of it and he wants to focus more on the ballroom. And so unfairly, Jimmy Kimmel might have just searched up a snippet without understanding, I guess the order of events in which happened. Maybe Donald Trump had just spoken to too many people about Charlie Kirk's death, and the clip that he chose to watch had been when he was trying to divert his interests away from the death of his longtime ally, Charlie Kirk, into something positive and constructive like the ballroom, which is unfortunate, because not only that is what got Jimmy Kimmel in trouble with the president, and not to, I think it's common knowledge to know that Donald Trump is not a fan of Jimmy Kimmel. He says his ratings are bad. In fact, he's not a fan of late night at all. He just wants everybody who are the hosts of these late night shows who are getting bad ratings to get removed altogether. But, I would take that with a grain of salt, because even if Donald Trump were to come back with a late night show of his own, I don't think he would do as well. So we should really take what the president says with a grain of salt when it comes to criticizing the late night era or the end of the late night era. But each to his own. He's allowed to have his opinion. But moreover, on the Jimmy Kimmel incident, he had gone on to say that basically the MAGA group has used this incident, this assassination, as political fuel to further their agenda instead of focusing on what a tragedy this is altogether. And maybe it's just something that he said too soon. And he went on to say that the shooter actually had ties to the MAGA party. And I don't know if this is just bad journalism on the part of Jimmy Kimmel, but it's found out in the days after Jimmy's shows gets canceled that in fact Tyler Robinson has views that are very left leaning. In fact, he was pro-gay and pro-trans, according to his mother. One article that I read about him. Really unfortunate. Jimmy Kimmel has been canceled. You know, Stephen Colbert has canceled. It is the end of a late night era. Do I feel bad for Jimmy Kimmel? Absolutely. And there are other people who feel bad for him as well. In fact, some people like Obama have called it government coercion on behalf of the Donald Trump presidency that Jimmy is canceled. But you know, yeah, it's kind of unfair to him because, I mean, yes, what he said was a little bit controversial and maybe too soon. But I do see the argument that, you know, it is a freedom of speech. In fact, Wanda Sykes, the comedian, says that one of Trump's first new acts as president in his first year is removing freedom of speech. And this is just that. This is the first example of people losing their freedom of speech, because if Jimmy Kimmel goes down, many other people in the entertainment industry feel vulnerable now. Yeah, it's kind of, but people have seen this as something that's been coming. So maybe the companies involved in Xing Jimmy Kimmel have utilized this as an opportunity rather than to, you know, go at Jimmy Kimmel, because he's pretty much a stand-up guy. For all intents and purposes, he's done nothing wrong. This is the most incendiary thing that he's done. And, you know, for what it's worth, he's pretty livid for getting fired, you know, just out of nowhere. So Jimmy's pretty upset right now. But I think this is what they're essentially leveraging, this opportunity to kind of sit Jimmy down and kind of tell him that this is the end of his era as far as being a late night host. Well, that's my opinion on it. But moreover, you know, Donald Trump is also in the news again for the next topic that we're going to discuss. And I think this is really where it heads home for me as an Indian immigrant. Even though I'm naturalized, I don't have to worry about the H-1B visa. Donald Trump recently just decided to impose a $100,000 fee for H-1B visas. This is totally blowing my mind right now. Probably blowing the minds of every Indian person here and people affected overseas in India as well, because 71% of those H-1B visas are awarded to the nation of India. In fact, all the other countries combined don't even come close. I mean, China comes in at second place at around 11.7%. And now here comes the rug pull for all those families who have to send their children overseas to America to get a slice of the good life. And now it's exorbitant to even be here. I mean, it's to think that those people were lucky and that they worked hard to come here, and now it's just impossible to come here. It's going to feel that way. I don't know if this is going to get any legal pushback from our court systems, and I hope it does. But if this is the way to combat the, you know, lack of talent that we haven't grown for the past couple of decades, we've been importing all of this IT talent, and now it finally comes to bite us in the ass. But I think this is a bit of an overreach. We'll have to see what our court systems will do as far as enforcing this. This is kind of just a jaw-dropping statistic, a number. So usually, I mean, I don't even know. Is this going from like $0 for what it costs to apply for an H-1B visa? I know the actual visa fee is $215, and that will now jump up to who knows what. But usually the way they do it is they hire individuals from overseas, and instead of paying the traditional IT salary of $100,000 per role, they find a way to get it done for $60,000, which is an unrealistic sum of money for these people coming from these third world countries. So they're more than happy to take those $60,000. But it means something when you disincentivize Americans from pursuing IT and STEM fields in colleges when they know that they're going to have to compete with individuals who are going to colleges overseas for the same exact thing, who are willing to take a pay cut for the same jobs. So that's really disheartening for students contemplating what major they're going to major in schools in America. And that's really the only worthwhile degree to obtain from universities at this day, STEM degrees, right? All the liberal arts degrees are just going bust. I mean, many people are in college, they have all of this debt from tuition they've yet to pay off, and that's just, all this college debt is just looming over them, and will probably never get paid off, and will have to be subsidized by taxes at some point in the future, realistically, because there's just no way for these people to even entertain paying that off, considering their livelihoods are lost since there are no jobs. So they're all like stuck mooching off their families. It's really, America is really in shambles. This is definitely, we've lost some of that gleam, that glory that America has been known for because of all the unemployment, and the economic state of affairs in this country has really taken a turn for the worse, especially after the recession of '09 and, Obama's presidency, even though he did pretty much everything that he possibly could to kind of ameliorate the effects of a recession. But we ended up in a global recession after that. So I definitely like to hear the opinion of Obama. I'd like to have a conversation with him to see, just to hear his opinion on everything that he's done to try to prevent this exact thing from happening. And not only are we in a depression, we've elected a billionaire. So I'm sure we'd have a lot of fun discussing, what else he could have done as part of, to cement his legacy as one of, I think the greatest presidents of our generation, if not of all time. But that's a separate conversation for another day. And to go back on topic on the H-1B visas, the fee for investor visas, I'm not exactly sure how this is actually calculated, but the fee now for companies is going up from $10,000 to $20,000 per year to hire an H-1B visa candidate from overseas. That marks 100% increase right off the bat. Now, whether this fee will just add that $100,000 right on to those $10,000, I don't know how this will go on. But or is it just a fee that individuals have to pay before coming to America? Like, is it just if you want an H-1B visa and to file the application, you have to come up with $100,000 to even try to be an H-1B visa candidate to come to the United States? I mean, the people that are here are probably just, you might as well start licking yourself like a cat, because like, how lucky are you to have made it here before this is instantiated? It's a mind-blowing figure that I don't think anybody from a third world country can reasonably expect to just gather together $100,000 to come to America. And moreover to that, he's implementing basically a gold card, which is a pathway to citizenship for $1 million. This is exactly what you would expect from a billionaire. And he's also has a $5 million platinum Trump card, which will grant you a pathway to citizenship here for rich foreign nationals to come to America. I mean, if you're wealthy, you now have a pathway to citizenship to come to America. Now, whether it's the right thing to do, considering we're in a global recession and America is not necessarily in its greatest moment of pride or anything like that, or maybe our greatest years have finally come past us, is something that's being discussed. It's definitely on the table for discussion at this point. But it really makes you wonder if they're really going to make all this money from providing this really expensive pathway to citizenship for people. And who knows? I mean, perhaps we can pay off some of this ridiculous debt if people around the world really want to come to America. I don't really know Trump's rationale for this, but it's really depressing to think that not only is this preventing immigration, exceptional people who are talented, who go to universities and go to colleges, from coming here. Not only is the bar raised for those individuals, but the fact that I don't even think that there is a market. Are we really going to make money from these gold cards and these platinum cards in the years to come from foreign people? Are they really going to spend that money to come here? And there's also tax incentives for the first 270 days or something, where non-US made money is untaxed in America. So you don't get taxed for overseas profits that you make while you're here under the platinum card or the gold card. So there's these little perks involved. But beyond that, I don't know how much money the government's actually going to make from these, which is what I'm trying to say. Moreover, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, I'm sure you guys are wondering what all the big companies are saying. He says all the big companies are on board, but yet, and I have to caveat this, none of them have come forward to make any comments. In fact, one of the main media companies contacted Microsoft, and they just flat out refused to comment. So this signals a lot of debate that we should expect, a lot of controversy, a lot of people sharing their opinions in the days to come on this, in the coming days, which I'm excited to hear. A lot of interesting views from company representatives as well as personal friends who should be outraged. $100,000 fee for an H-1B visa is really unheard of. It's probably one of the last things that I could have come up with in terms of combating. I mean, maybe it makes sense to impose a fee on H-1B visas, but $100,000, I think maybe a bit extravagant. We'll just have to wait and see how this plays out, and see if there's actually any backlash from Indian nationals here currently, what their situation is with family and how that's really India has come forward with a statement saying that this will disparately impact Indian families and pull them apart. Individuals who are here overseas working, busting their ass off to send money home for those 3 to 6 years that they're able to survive here on the H-1B visa. Now what happens? The companies might have to actually hire local talent and fire these individuals, and some might not stay for those 3 to 6 years. So there might be a mass exodus of H-1B visas from this country. And that's really sad, because I don't even, do we count those statistics? And, how are we going to cite those statistics? Who are we going to blame? But I think, there should be significant backlash, and we should see this number come down in the months following. But, I'm going to kind of tie this down towards the end of it, but, you have to give props to Donald Trump for at least trying to tackle all these problems. Even though he's doing it from like a wealthy person's perspective, he's still kind of making a dent. These are baby steps in order to, for our struggling nation, all of its ailments, he's actually taking baby steps to kind of do something about it. So it's somewhat commendable. Amazon apparently gets 10,000 H-1B visa approvals a year. So if you have any friends working for Amazon, Will Amazon, it's $1 trillion. It's probably worth trillions of dollars. So it probably can't handle the payments, but it's just not economically feasible. It shouldn't make sense. And that's why the price is so high. So maybe this is how the government makes some money to reduce our national debt. But this is definitely incendiary as far as right off the bat, my initial reaction is it's jaw dropping. And Howard Lutnick furthermore goes on to say, kind of in a patriotic tone, that if you're going to train people, you're going to train Americans. And so this is where we're headed for as a nation. Finally, the brain drain maybe is stopped. We plugged the brain drain maybe here. But the price to pay is unreal. Moreover, it sounds like what we've been doing, and this is kind of a personal opinion of mine, it might be a little flagrant, but we have been engaging in a sort of complicated legal wage slavery, because $40,000 less for a job, that's beyond sexism. You cannot pay a woman $40,000 less for the same job. That will lead to civil lawsuits. But the fact that we're paying men $40,000 less just because they come from a different country and they're okay with it, it's not righteous. It's morally very vacuous. And so we're definitely going to be revisiting this over and over again. The fact that we shouldn't necessarily, or we shouldn't. And, even immigrants who come over here illegally, who do work for like ridiculous prices. That should signal the value of the cost to do the job itself. It signals that maybe we shouldn't pay people as much to begin with. But it is wage slavery if they know that they're getting paid too little, and that we know we're making way too much money paying these people those amounts. It's definitely a conversation and something that it's politics. So we should try to set a mandate or set a bar, set a minimum wage for corporations as far as H-1B visas go, to put a cap on how low they can go and to administer it. Because essentially $60,000, this is what's happening. People are not motivated to go to university. They just can't compete with, all the schooling what they go to with just a $60,000. Granted, we pay way more for education in this country than other countries. So if you factor that into account, you don't want to work for $60,000 because you just spent $400,000, $100,000 a year going to university maybe. So these are all the things that have to be discussed when contemplating, putting a price on H-1B visas or capping them altogether or getting rid of it, like many people have suggested. Right-wing people just don't like the idea of H-1B visas altogether. Get rid of it. That's highly unrealistic. So you kind of have to wonder what direction we're going to take now. And at least, the conversation is being had. And again, it comes back to Trump actually doing something about it. So that's very, very impressive. Companies also, I just forgot to add this little addendum here. Companies will now be able to sponsor individuals for $2 million. That is so crazy. That just signals to me that it's just AI talent they're trying to poach from overseas. Even though we have, the best AI universities in the world, we're still trying to, there's no way we're paying $2 million for anybody. I can't think of one profession besides AI where we'd be willing to spend $2 million for an individual for 6 years. We're going to pay these people ridiculous amounts of money for AI engineering, and that's possibly what this is for. So it's good. The government expects to make some kind of money, and maybe that'll be good for us if we can pay off some more debt, but I'm not too confident about that. To kind of wrap this up, I know it's going to be a short podcast because this is really what's on the news. It's kind of inflaming. I'm still reveling in the fact that this is happening. Um, I think I have to speak to more members of my community, see other people's takes on it, rather than just doing my own research because I'm kind of flummoxed here at the moment. But yeah, this is really going to impact the Indian community. So it has a very personal tone to me. But to wrap things up, pretty much, I want to say that my opinion on Trump has changed a lot. I kind of have to dive in to why I think Trump is pretty much going to the center of our emotions. He's dragging out the emotions of frustrated Americans who've been through periods of economic turmoil for the last maybe 2 decades. It's rounding about that we're in 2025. If the economy tanked in 2009 and they'd been signs well before that, it's been close to 20 years that we've been in a steady economic decline. So I think that a lot of people have these opinions. They're very patriotic. They're losing their morale, and that there's a lot of anger that Trump is really channeling, and a lot of people don't like wealthy people. People are really upset about the disparity between wealth and stuff, and for finally a rich guy to come clean and try to do something about it to try to improve the lives of everyday Americans really is challenging all of our Americans to get involved in the political system. A lot of people in the MAGA party are actually, their parents are upset, or they're upset, or they've had a tough time getting themselves put through school. Individuals like Charlie Kirk, have been proactive and they've become vocal. And I think it's really important to get all of these voices heard. Otherwise, they'll just fester and turn into like mass atrocities like gun violence and things like that. So I think Trump is really good at helping vent out the anger of a nation who's seen a steady economic decline for close to 2 decades at this point. So I think for that reason, Trump is very useful. And beyond that, though, I think there's a lot of things negative to be said because he is talking to those people, and those people who've been affected, I don't think they really care about the well-being of gays and stuff. These are conservative individuals who watch the decline of a once very wealthy and prosperous nation decline. Since Bill Clinton's presidency, we had a surplus. So I don't think they really care about gay rights and things like that. And so for him to be talking to these people and, some of the things that he said, I mean, he's probably had to step back from his own identity to speak to these individuals. And I think he's had a hard time speaking to these people, and he's had to say some pretty crude things. He's had to tailor his speeches to some neo-Nazis and stuff. And I genuinely don't think Donald Trump is a neo-Nazi. I don't think a neo-Nazi is something that this country, this great nation, would elect. I don't think we're that foolish. But he definitely has to tailor his speeches to these people because these people are citizens and they are struggling and they are going through something. So he's giving a voice to those people, and he's really involving himself in a lot of questionable things like QAnon and just this Muslim ban, which just sounds so anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic, but it's supposedly to prevent terrorism in America. And this is something that we have to sit here and just endure, I guess, because our nation, we're under threat. I mean, we're involved in all these global operations, and so we don't want any retaliation from those individuals on our home soil. So he's flat out just banned travel to those countries, so they don't have any experience with Americans, and they don't get too upset with our citizenry and come here and do something atrocious like terrorism. So some of them have been inflammatory. his solutions have not always seemed to fix the problem, and they highlight maybe his ineptitude or his lack of intelligence. But I commend him for at least trying as much as a billionaire can, because those people are busy. And granted, he's been utilizing the presidency for his own personal benefit, but at least he's trying. That's all you can expect from a president that we've elected. I mean, he's gotten there through a system designed to put the people's best interests in mind. So, I mean, for what it's worth, he's doing he's doing his job. From the border wall, which is a necessity. I recently researched this in 2006. They decided to actually build a wall back in 2006 because it was costing us so much from all these illegal drug transactions and illegal trespassing, illegal immigrants. So all Trump has essentially done in 2020 is strengthen the wall, extend the wall, so the resources, all those Border Patrol agents can be put to other uses and to save on taxes. So ultimately, the border wall has been useful. I think that's one of the benefits. That's one of the positive, enduring aspects of Donald Trump's legacy. We will revisit in the future, and we will definitely, commend him on this in the future. To the travel ban, I mean, even though it's incendiary to actually just X out a whole bunch of Muslim countries, but if he says it's to protect us from terrorism, because I guess it's too complicated, but our foreign policy is fucking up democracies and countries overseas, and so if we have to ban them from coming here or ban us from going there to protect us from terrorism, then maybe it's the right thing to do. I mean, it's really it's hard. These are hard pills to swallow. They're not easy fixes by any stretch of imagination. But if it prevents people, atrocities and people from dying, then I guess it's a positive thing. If anything, President Trump's presidencies have taught me, it's that it is a very, very tough job, even for a billionaire who has all these resources. This is definitely not an easy job. I mean, he's gotten shot. There's threats on his own life, and now people who had elected him are dying. So it's definitely a tough job. So what if he's excited about the ballroom? You know what I mean? He's lived in an estate in the Mar-a-Lago. I'm sure they have an expansive ballroom, so let him enjoy doing that. And he's doing that for all presidents in the future too, so it makes no sense to put up a tent. So at least divert some of our funds, some of these funds from the H-1B to having a grand ballroom. Sure, why not? To supporting individuals who attacked the Capitol, who were his supporters, who claimed that through some conspiracy that there was fraud occurring and that Joe Biden was unlawfully elected in 2020, even though he was I don't know what to call his presidency, but he kind of just fizzled out there at the end. But now we're back to 20. I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around 4 years, but yeah, I guess I don't know what was happening during Biden's presidency from 2020 to 2024. But Biden is now gone, and I mean, this man basically allowed people to storm the Capitol. These were his supporters. But by the same token, you can say that he dispelled a lot of chaos, a lot of concern about us living in a military state. I know that we were worried and that we would have all these liberal discussions we would have at university about how people can, unleash drones on us. The government is coming after our guns. This kind of dissipated some of that tension on kind of to find the silver lining on this whole situation. People actually successfully storming the Capitol with guns. It could have led to way more people dying, had it not been for a particular officer who pushed these individuals away. He literally went the other way from a room which, if these infiltrators had opened, would have been met with rifle fire, and it would have led to an atrocity on that day. But because of one officer going in the wrong direction, he pretty much diverted these individuals who stormed the Capitol to go in the wrong direction and save their lives. So, very touchy subject. And ultimately, it should not have happened. It's the wrong thing for those people to have done. It's in no way what an American should do. It's borderline revolutionary activity. But it just goes to show that the American government did not retaliate by sending the National Guard out and creating mass panic. They handled it in a pretty effective manner, I'd like to think. And then they put these people on trial, and they've sentenced them pretty fairly. I mean, they pretty much got all the details from what happened and sentenced these people accordingly and put them into prison. And they did a pretty good job of that. And I think they dispelled some of that worry that we live in a malicious state. That's what I want to say. And so that's another positive for Donald Trump's presidency. Although I don't think this is anything that he seriously meant to do, because he was pretty upset he couldn't go to the Capitol himself. In fact, his Secret Service detail told him no, and apparently he tried to go at his Secret Service agent's throat. But no charges were, ever filed for that. But it just goes to show that how invested he is in actually being the president and being responsible for his followers. So that's another good thing for, on behalf of Donald Trump and his presidency. These, they were joking that there were, these infiltrators of the Capitol. They were joking that they were homegrown militia, and it's just like the first of a kind that we've never had an incident like this where we allowed basically a homegrown militia. I mean, they had pipe bombs, even though they were diversionary and not intended to cause much harm. They were placed outside of the Democratic National Republican Committee and the Republican National Committee, but they were just diversionary in order to get further access to actually, I guess their intent was to storm Congress, which they got pretty close to doing. And the way we handled it is something I have to really applaud, because it proved to us that we're flexible as a nation, that we don't have to just send out the army every time, supporters of our president or political activists get out of control. We know how to handle them as a country. And that, that brings me some joy to know. And then finally, now the problem with homegrown IT and AI talent. The fact that we haven't been able to cultivate this at home means that we're spending ridiculous amounts of money on talent overseas. And this is now going to be solved with a fee for the H-1B visa. It used to be so based on merit, and it was really an economic opportunity, but I guess 20, 30, 40 years of open immigration has finally calmed down and caused inflation and economic downturn. And we're really paying the price for this stuff, and the lack of motivation for our own students to go to university and pursue STEM subjects. So this man is really at it. I mean, he's going at it with the wrong tools, you can argue. But at least he's making a change in the right, and he's taking the steps in the right direction. Granted, they may be overreaches. This is something that's left up to debate that I'll let our courts decide on, because this really will impact the direction of our nation, headed towards the future, our financial future especially. But, he's at least vowed to take some action in order to alleviate some of the pressing concerns of our day. And regardless of the outcome, that's brave and commendable. And that's how I'd like to end this podcast before I go back and speak to my community on this H-1B ordeal. So I definitely like to hear more people's opinions, but I'd just like to say, like, bravo to Trump for at least trying. And that's how I'd like to end this podcast. Good on you, Trump. Thank you for listening.